So let's talk about the manual inspection process itself, because this lab is about that. So there's an inspector, okay, sitting in front of the light booth. Okay, so the inspector will physically pick up the vials or syringes, okay, and then examine the drug product, okay, against the light. That's what's going to take place, just like this picture. Okay, so here's the inspector, so looking at the drug product against the light. Okay, so this light booth should meet the qualification requirement. Of course, the light intensity should be checked. Okay, it should be between 2000 and 3750 lux of the light intensity. Okay, and they should have a black background as well as white background, so which are made out of non-glare material. Okay, so one black, one white. And then the vials, while the inspection is taking place, okay, should be held with the gloved hands, and should be moved a certain way. Maybe you can swirl it a little bit, so there will be gentle agitation taking place. Okay, after that, because the particulate is not, if it's sitting down, it will be hard to see. So you are agitating a little bit, so the particulate will float up. That will help you to identify it, right? So agitate the swirl up, agitate it to identify it, and once that's done, so you look at it about 5 seconds, okay, and then you invert it too, and then look at it again, okay. So you do that against white background, and you do that against black background as well, okay. So agitate it, and then invert it, look at it, 5 seconds, and then go to different background and do the same thing. Okay. Inspectors maintain a match identity by placing inspected product on the label trays within the inspection area. If there's no problem, move it to the right categorized area. It's passed. If there is the defect, then you have to move the identified defects on the right area. That's what it means. Okay, and then any vials that have identified defects are rejected. Okay, if you identify them, they are not passed, they will reject it. And each defect is recorded in the appropriate categories. As I told you before, there are critical defect, major defect, and minor defect. Okay, you have to sort them out based on what category they fall into. And then, not only that, they will be labeled with sticker with what defect they are identified. And at the end of inspection, the number of rejects is totaled. Okay, total number of rejects will be added up and then entered on the inspection form. There should be a blank where you can find out how many defects you identified. So the inspector's role is important. Okay, so they should meet the vision requirement. They should be able to see those particles very well. So they should have good eyesight. Okay, and they should be well trained and annually certified. Okay, they'll go through the certification process every year. And then, since it's very intensive work, they have required a mandatory break. Okay, so they have to take a break up, so their eyes and eyesight will not be fatigued during the inspection. Okay. Basic procedure for manual inspection again: container of parenteral drug solution should be free of labels and thoroughly cleaned. So it's before secondary packaging, before labeling is done. So everything should be easily visible. That's what it means. And use dampened non-linting cloth if we have to clean it, or sponge to remove external particles if there are any external particles. You can use those. And hold containers by its top and carefully swirl, like I said, to agitate it. Content by rotating the wrist area to remove contents of the container. Okay, so let it float. That's what it means. Okay, and avoid creating bubbles through vigorous swirling. If you shake it too much, you will form a lot of air bubbles, and it's confusing if those are air bubbles and particulates. Don't shake it too much. That's what it means. And hold container horizontally, about 4 inches below the light source. Okay, you don't want to get too close to the light. Okay, you don't want to get too far away from the light, about 4 inches away. Okay, and then white and black background you have to inspect, of course. And the light should be away from the light because you don't want to see directly through to the light. Okay. Inspector's hand should be kept under the light source to prevent glare. Okay, good. And then if no particles are seen, invert the container, like I said, so one side and invert it and slowly and to observe any particles that may have been suspended by swelling. Observation should be only like 5 seconds each for black and 5 seconds for white background. Okay, and reject any container having visible particles at any time during the inspection process. So the rule is, again, all the vials should be inspected 100%. And then if AQL is not met, the limit is not met, you mean if your defects are exceeding the limit, that's a problem. So then investigation, including forensic identification of what those particulates are, 40 meters are, where they are coming from, should be conducted. Okay, and then a second 100% inspection of the batch may be warranted, or batch may be rejected. So once you have AQL limit exceeding, then someone else has to inspect all of them again, see if this trend pattern is correct, and then identify where that problem is coming from. That's what it means. Inspection review procedure. The inspection reviewer, so this visual inspection is a primary inspection, right? And then there's a secondary inspection happening too. The reviewer reviews both a set of good and defects. Okay, after primary inspection is done, secondary inspection we're talking about. Okay, inspector will sort them out, and the reviewer examine the appropriate number of randomly selected vials to fulfill AQL inspection statistical criteria. So what does that mean? So we talked about this, right? So if you're inspecting, for example, 500 vials, out of those, about 200 should be re-inspected. Out of past batch, out of rejected batch, choose 200 total and re-inspect it. We're talking about that spot right now. Okay, so that's inspection review. Okay, if the recorded defect is incorrect and should be recategorized, the reviewer makes a correction. So secondary inspector has a right to make a correction. Okay, so the sticker should be removed and redone to categorize correctly. Okay, enter the correct defect code. Okay, if the vial does not contain any defect, recorded it on a passing vial entry in the inspection form. Yeah, people can make mistake. That's what it means. So you can correct the mistake once the mistake is made. After removing the defect sticker, vial is placed in the good set of product, so it's passed instead of identified as a defect. If the reviewer encounters a vial containing a defect from a good set, somehow it's categorized as a passed good, but there was a defect there, then again the vial is labeled with a sticker with the appropriate defect code and recategorized. Okay, if necessary, reviewer recommend management of the inspector to be retrained if the inspector seems to be making too many mistakes. That's what it means. Okay, and the inspector should be retrained on the particular defect inspection to be or disqualified as inspector. So if the inspector is making too many mistakes, of course that person should be retrained or maybe should not be inspecting the job. That's what it means. The reviewer completes the product inspection form after the secondary inspection is done. Okay, makes sense? So again, these are the examples of the critical defects we talked about: crack in the container vial, okay, and lamination. So it's obvious. I don't know, maybe is that a discoloration or maybe some foreign substance in the stuff. So maybe it's a foreign substance in there, and visible particles. Okay, these are all maybe critical. If this is injected, maybe intravenously, the blood vessel could be blocked, and that's dangerous. Major defects. Okay, depends on the particulate. If they are in there, those are major defect. If you look at it on the microscope, maybe something like that, maybe some kind of fiber in there, maybe a little bit of particle there. So these are all major defects. Minor defects, mostly cosmetic nature. I don't know if it's a crack or not. Maybe, hopefully, again, it's a major defect. I'm sorry, major defect. Fiber in there. Crack on the seal. Maybe outside crack on the syringe cartridge. Seal again damaged. Cracks and things like that. Minor defect, mostly cosmetic issues that do not impact the integrity of the container itself. It doesn't, harm the CISPQ. Remember what CISPQ is? So safety, identity, and strength, and what is that? Quality. P stands for what again? Purity, right? So safety, identity, strength, purity, and quality of the drug. So, and anything that's not harming CISPQ, product CISPQ, those will be considered as minor defect. Okay. What's next? So your hands-on exercise, what you're going to do in the lab. So we have a drug batch, the vial batch that we made in-house. Okay, so you will inspect those. So each batch is made out of 70 vials. Okay, so you're going to come up with a group. Maybe depends on how big the class is. Hopefully there will be an inspector, reviewer within your group, or a couple of inspectors, a couple of reviewers, depends on how you're going to divide your group. So I'm going to come up with multiple groups. So because we have two drug vial batches in our lab, so each group will inspect each batch, so about 70 vials, and identify all defects. Okay, I'll give you inspection form and handouts. You will identify all of them, maybe, and then you'll place the labels on the defects with the identification codes, what defect those are. Okay, and then fill out the inspection form. Once that's done, I want you to cross-examine the inspection done by other group. You can see, so you will do a secondary inspection on the batch that was inspected by the other group. So you will share the work. So your inspected, batch will be secondary inspected by other groups. So there will be a cross-examination in the process. So see, if you can identify all defects through this activity, so that's the goal. Okay. So when you do that, follow the inspection process. We have the two light booths in the lab. So inspection will take place inside of the light booth. All 100% batch will be inspected, and all the defects will be identified, and follow the basic procedure for manual inspection. I've gone through that. Complete and submit the product inspection form. Okay, and then so once the cross-examination is done, then we'll see which group did better thorough inspection. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.